Welcome everybody. In this segment I'm going to discuss the top quarterbacks that are available for our fantasy football draft. Remember, we did have a few quarterbacks kept as part of keepers. We had Andrew Luck, we also had Peyton Manning, and I did keep RG3. So basically I'm just going to discuss the top quarterbacks for this upcoming draft. For this segment we're going to discuss the top quarterbacks that are left following our keeper selections. There were two quarterbacks kept by Joe Yaks and by Pat. That was Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. Both of those are good quarterbacks. Peyton Manning's a living legend. It's simple put as that. He's most likely the third or fourth best quarterback for a fantasy league, and I would rank Luck somewhere in between the 9th to 12th best quarterback. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the top 7 that I believe are the best quarterbacks in the league to take for a fantasy football league. The first one is probably the best quarterback right now in the NFL. He's the discount double check man, former California Golden Bear, the big Aaron Rodgers from Green Bay. Rodgers is probably one of the most consistent and highest scoring fantasy quarterbacks in the league for the past 4 or 5 years. Ever since he took over for Brett Favre, he's become a real true superstar in the league. He's one of the most accurate, athletic, and reliable quarterbacks, and he does have a decent deep ball, which can help benefit any team when you're throwing long touchdown passes. Based on last year's stats, he averaged 23.8 points per game. Based on our scoring system, had 39 TDs and only 9 picks. That's a pretty good ratio. That's a 4-to-1 ratio almost, and that's really good when you talk about fantasy points, because interceptions cost you points. He doesn't throw very many. He doesn't rank up in the top 3 or 4 with the amount of yards that he has, but he does turn his yards into a lot of touchdowns, which is probably one of the most consistent things about Rodgers. He only had about 4,300 yards last year, which is still pretty good, but you're not talking Drew Brees numbers of 5,300 yards. Over the past 3 years, he's only thrown 24 picks, which is 8 a year, and he's thrown 112 TDs. That's impressive. You're talking 38 touchdowns a year average. Or 36, excuse me. That's pretty good. He also has one of the best receiving game, with Jordy Nelson, James Jones, and the emergence of Randall Cobb in the slot. And you can throw in Jermichael Finley, even though he's kind of not any good anymore. He was good a couple years ago, but he could still provide a little bit from the tight end spot for him. The biggest concern right now is Jordy Nelson did just go down with an injury. He had surgery. I can't remember exactly what he had surgery for, but he's hopeful he'll be there for week 1. I haven't heard anything saying he won't be. And then Randall Cobb hurt his knee, I believe, a couple days into practice, and his status is kind of up in the air still. So, if they both come back for week 1, you're not going to have any issues with that. But, Rodgers is still going to be able to get the ball to people. He's still one of the best quarterbacks, and he can distribute the ball with the best of them. Another concern is their line. The O-line sacks last year, 51 sacks, in 16 games. That's 3 to 3.5 a game. That's a lot of sacks, a lot of hits Aaron Rodgers takes. He does take a lot of abuse, but he always keeps ticking. He always stands in the pocket. He's willing to take a hit to make a pass. And another good thing about Rodgers too is he likes to run, which he's not the most fleet of foot. He's no RG3 or Colin Kaepernick, but he can get out of elude the back, get out of the backfield, get a couple points, and he will score you a few touchdowns rushing the ball. So that Aaron Rodgers would be the number one quarterback in a fantasy football league. Pretty much, I would say 99% of them are going to pick Aaron Rodgers first. The number 2 pick is another little guy, pretty good quarterback. He came out of Purdue. He's only 6 foot, which speaks a lot about how good he really is. 6 foot is not very tall quarterback. Drew Brees from the New Orleans Saints. He was the top fantasy football quarterback last year. Based upon our scoring league and our stats, he averaged 24.1 points per game. That is a tremendous mark for quarterbacks. That's pretty good. You want to get over 15 points per game with your quarterback, and he's consistently putting up 20-plus points a game. He is the first quarterback in NFL history to have back-to-back 5,000-yard seasons. And he has led the league, the NFL, in touchdown passes in 4 out of the last 5 years. Another good stat, for Drew Brees is that they were the 3rd highest passing team last year. They passed the ball 8 times. And now they have Sean back, which means nothing changed. They should probably maybe throw the ball more with Sean Payton. Over the past 3 years, Drew Brees has averaged 5,100 yards passing per year, 40.6 TDs. But the one concern with Drew Brees is that he likes to he likes to throw the gunslinger mentality, and he will throw some picks. He had 18 picks last year. That's a high number. That's one of the higher average, one of the higher interceptions in the league. But you base that with the 40+ touchdowns, and you're going to take that trade-off based upon the yards and the touchdowns he puts up. He does, his wide receivers are okay. Marquise Colston is a decent receiver. Lance Moore is a deep threat who can hit the home run. But the greatest wide receivers, they're not in your, I wouldn't say not in your top 20, best receivers in the league. But he does have the absolute best tight end in the league with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham, is a tremendous tight end. He catches a ton of passes for Drew Brees. And barring, Rob Gronkowski coming back, Jimmy Graham will be the best tight end in the league this year. He also has Darren Sproles. Darren Sproles is a really good pass-catching running back who can make plays when he gets the ball in space zone, provides a good safety, and he'll rip off their screen pass or a little dump off in the flats, and he'll rush he'll get a ton of yards after catch, which is very beneficial to Drew Brees. So Drew Brees would be the number 2 quarterback based on our fantasy football stats and my personal opinion on it. Number 3 is probably my favorite quarterback to play in the NFL. Former pride of the University of Michigan, and Gisele Bundchen's hubby, Tom Brady from New England. Came out of nowhere, and that biggest thing with him is where he got drafted. He was a 6th round draft pick, 199th overall. And he took over for Drew Brees and led New England in the playoffs, and they won a Super Bowl, and he's just developed into one of the best quarterbacks to ever play football, and could be up there with the Joe Montanas and the Steve Youngs in the best, talk for the best quarterback to ever play. I remember there's always been saying about him that when Robert Kraft, that this was the best decision you ever made in drafting me. Well, I mean, New England's probably pretty happy with that selection. He's led them to 3 Super Bowls since. He's a true star, and he does it with receivers that aren't known, that aren't best. I mean, yes, he did have Wes Welker, and he did have Randy Moss for the year they went 16-0 and lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. But other than that, I mean, who are the receivers? In the years they won Super Bowls, it was Troy Brown, David Gibbons, Jabbar Gaffney. I mean, who are these people? They're no names, and that's probably one of the most impressive things is that Brady distributes the ball in such a way that he'll get every receiver in, and it doesn't matter how good that receiver is, he's going to make them good because Brady's throwing him the ball. He really is an elite quarterback, and last year he threw for 4,800 yards and 34 TDs and 8 picks. That's a pretty good ratio. Again, you're looking at 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That's really good. It's actually 4.2 probably to 1, which is a really good ratio. And that's what you want on your fantasy football team, is a quarterback who doesn't throw many picks. 8 picks is pretty impressive. That's not a lot of picks. Just some stats over the past 3 years. He's averaged 36 TDs and 8 interceptions a year for the past 3, and he averaged about 4,650 yards passing, which still really good. And one makes concern that he's done it with no talent at wide receiver. They lost their top 5 receivers from last year. All 5 of their top pass catchers are all gone. The first one is Wes Welker, who went to Denver. You got Brandon Lloyd, who was released and hasn't been picked up by anybody. Danny Woodhead, the pass-catching running back from Morehead State, I believe, went to San Diego. And your top tight end, the best tight end in the league when he's healthy, and that's Rob Gronkowski. Who knows when he's going to come back? He hurt himself. I think he had back surgery, and there's no guarantee he's going to start week 1 or even be back who knows when, which is a big loss for New England because they have the best tight end, and they did have another tight end, but he opted to go play for the Bristol House of Corrections team, and that would be Aaron Hernandez, and he's no longer in the NFL because he did some shit. With all of those losses, the Patriots did go out and they did sign a very underrated wide receiver just because of his injuries. He's had a lot of injury problems, but when he's healthy, he can be a really good wide receiver. It's Danny Amendola. I think he'll roll the slot just because the Patriots really don't have any other wide receivers. They got a bunch of rookies, and they drafted Aaron Dobson. But there's no guarantee that any of that's really going to pan out. Barring any injuries that Amendola might have, he could be the best wide receiver that they have, and he could produce very well in fantasy with Brady getting them the ball. They also have a couple of running backs in Shane Vereen and Stephen Ridley, and they can provide some help out of the backfield with some pass catching as well. And the only other receiver they really have is Edelman, and he's still not up to probably what they'd want, but they really don't have a true number 1, which is the concern for the Patriots. But Tom Brady has done it with less. So Tom Brady is your 3rd best NFL quarterback for fantasy football. The 4th one is probably going to surprise a lot of people, but when you have the best receiving core in the league, your quarterback's going to put up points and he's going to score touchdowns. The 4th quarterback would be former Boston College Eagle, and that would be Matt Ryan. He's a tremendous quarterback. He's still kind of fresh and new, and he's still developing. But you got Julio Jones and Roddy White, who are just simply the 2 best receivers in the league. Top 10 is available for any football, fantasy football draft. Julio Jones can burn people deep, and Matt Ryan throws a decent, deep ball. He throws a good enough deep ball to give Julio Jones the opportunity to go up and get it. And Roddy White is just a very consistent pass catcher. You're going to have 200 between them, and probably 20 touchdowns, 22 touchdowns this year. And not only do you have the two best receivers, but you got probably the second or third best tight end, and that's Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez has been a staple in this league for years, and he's continuing to do it. Even though he said he was going to retire, he got a little taste when they lost to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game last year, and wants to come back and try to get to the Super Bowl. They also added Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson was underused and underutilized in St. Louis. He played on a team that wasn't very good, and now he's going to a really good team who's going to use him, and he's going to provide a lot of support. He's a better running back than Michael Turner was, and he'll get more yards, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is a big help for Matt Ryan, and he'll get Matt Ryan a lot of touchdowns through the air as well. Other than that, he is pretty consistent. He doesn't throw for a ton of yards. I think he had like 4,100 yards last year, somewhere around there. Not a ton of yards, but he did have 32 touchdowns with only 14 interceptions. I expect that number to go up a little bit with Steven Jackson. They do have Jacquizz Rodgers, too, who catches the ball at the backfield, but Steven Jackson's probably going to help him a lot and get him a lot more touchdowns off the air. So number from Falcons. Number 5 is a guy that I really don't like, and he had kind of a down year last year, but, he can run, and he provides, almost 8 points a game just on the ground. That would be the former Auburn Tiger, and that's Cam Newton from Carolina. I don't really care for him. I don't like running quarterbacks. That's just my personal thing. I think when you put running backs or quarterbacks out there and you start having them run all the time, they're going to get hurt. And it's just a simple thing that they're a little bit more fragile than your normal players. And I know Cam Newton's big. He's got a lot of weight to him. Good size for a quarterback, but you can't continually take the beatings that the run quarterbacks do when they get out in space. And you got middle linebackers. He averaged points a game strictly from his running ability. He had 741 yards last year and 8 TDs just rushing the ball. That kind of helps out his TD to interception ratio that was only at 19 to 12. So it puts him up there at 27 total touchdowns, which is really beneficial for his stats, because other than that, 19 and 12 is not that good. He doesn't throw the ball a whole lot, and he's not very accurate when he does throw the ball. He only gets about 51%. Pass pretty. Like I said, he does run the ball, and he does get 700 plus yards a year and score about 7-8 touchdowns a year on the ground, which pads his stats a little bit. So like I said, as a quarterback, I do not like him, but maybe in fantasy, he might be worth a gamble. You never know what you're kind of going to get. I probably won't pick him, but that's just my choice. I'd rather go with somebody who can sling the ball a little bit better than he can. I just think you're taking too much of a risk with it, but he does put up points, and that's why he's ranked as the number 5. So that'd be Cam Newton as the number 5. The number 6th best quarterback available would be Matt Stafford. The only reason he's 6th is because he had a little bit of a down year last year, and there's a lot going for Matt Stafford in this year. He proved a couple years ago that he can play through over 5 downs plus. He had a really tremendous year, and hopefully he can continue to progress and continue his ability to make plays. He has the best receiver in the game in Megatron with Kelvin Johnson. Megatron is just simply amazing. He'll double, triple team it, don't matter. He'll get the ball, he'll catch it, and he'll make plays. He also, not only do you have Kelvin Johnson, but you have Nate Burleson, who, barring any injury, he did have injury problems last year. He's a decent number 2 receiver. He can make a lot of plays, maybe take a little bit of heat off of Kelvin, which can open up Kelvin for more plays, and that might be an issue too with if the Lions don't have a number 2 or number 3 receiver. Kelvin can't get the ball every time, and I think that was a little bit of the issue with Stafford too, is trying to force the ball to Kelvin. So a lot of it's going to depend on Ryan Broyles, if he comes back from his torn ACL, I think he had last year, and he could provide some help up the middle, and if he's healthy, he can help Stafford out and help distribute the ball a little bit better than maybe what they had to do last year. Matt Stafford is going to put up points. He's going to put up yards. They had, for the second year in a row, they led the league in passing attempts. They had 727 passing attempts last year. It was almost, I think it was 80 pass attempts more than the next highest guy. They like to throw the ball, and this year they went out and they got Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush is going to be beneficial. He's going to provide a lot for Matt Stafford and that Lions offense. He's more versatile than any back they have in the backfield. He's going to get you, they're projecting him to see, I've seen 75 receptions. That's a ton for a running back. But, he's going to provide help with the dump-offs, with the screens, with quick little, everything he's going to do and help Matt Stafford when he gets in a pinch, because, that offensive line for the Lions is kind of horrible with Dominic Raiola, who probably needs to go. But that's my opinion, not anybody else's. Other than that, you have Brandon Pettigrew, Stonehands Pettigrew, what I like to call him, but he drops a lot of passes, but he can make a lot of plays, and hopefully this year he won't have butterfingers and he won't drop everything that comes at him. And the Lions continue to progress. There's a lot of expectations for the Lions. Matt Stafford's kind of defense. Is he going to do it this year? If he doesn't do it this year, what's that saying about him? He's got all the tools. He's got the best receiver. He's got a great pass-catching running back. And a decent running back who's probably going to get you 700-800 yards. And you've still got Michael, who's still going to be a little bit of help in the running game. Another stat, which I found amazing, was 23 times last year a Lion player was tackled inside the opponent's 5-yard line on a pass reception. That's crazy. That's a lot of possible touchdowns that were taken away. And the biggest stat is, as good as Calvin Johnson was, he was tackled on the 1 or inside the opponent's 1 yard line 5 times after a reception. You think about that, he scores 5 times, that's another 20 points added on to Matt Stafford, and it helps out his looks. He only had 20 touchdowns and with 17 picks. You start looking at, okay, 23 players got tackled inside the 5, half of them score, you're looking at a 30 touchdown year, which pads his stats up 40 points, makes it a lot better than what his you got 30-17, it's a lot better than 2017. How would that happen? I mean, that's just an insane stat. I've never heard of anything like that before, and it's almost like he had a lot of bad luck as far as guys getting in the end zone close to score. And maybe this year that doesn't happen. I mean, that it's just, to me, it's Calvin Johnson getting caught inside the 1 yard line or on the 1 5 times is amazing, because as strong and as big and as good as he is, you'd never think that would happen. Other than that, I would probably say you're looking at a 35 touchdown season for Stafford, probably 4,800 yards, and hopefully Red Bush can really help out more yards. So I got Stafford, the former Georgia Bulldog. All right, and the number 7th quarterback on this is probably going to piss a couple people off. Probably going to get some text messages saying that I'm an idiot and I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But that would be the former Eastern Illinois Panther and the current Dallas Cowboy quarterback. That'd be Tony Romo. You know what? You can go into everything you want to say about, he's just a choke artist, he does this, he does that. Well, when it comes to fantasy points, we're not here to discuss choking in the playoffs or choking in a game down the stretch. It's about the overall season and about the points that they put up. You're looking at Tony Romo, who averages over 30 touchdowns a year with only about 14 picks. Last year, he had, out of the 16 games he started, he only had 2 games he scored under 10 points. So take those 2 games out, and 9.2. It's based on our scoring system last year in 2 games. You take those out, he averages 22 points a game. That puts him in the top 8 of every fantasy football league you're playing, and he's gonna be in the top 8 for quarterbacks. It's been like that for, I believe, the past 4 out of 5 years he's done it. 4 out of 5 years he's been in the top 8 quarterbacks. Another stat for you that's kind of impressive is he threw for over 400 yards 3 times last year, and he had over 300 yards, 9 game plus yards. That's impressive. You don't see many quarterbacks that do it outside of maybe Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers will throw for over 300 yards a couple of times. Matt Stafford will probably throw over 300 yards a couple of times. But 9 times, that's very impressive. Again, while he does throw for a ton of yards, he does have some good games like that. He's also prone to your one blow up. And last year he had a game where he threw 5 picks. Out of the 14 picks I think he threw last year, he had 5 picks come in one game. So now that puts you down to 9 with 15. So now you're looking at 1.2 a game or something like that. You're looking at a whole different stat, if you take out the one bad game a year that he has. And so it's better that he has one bad game a year than he has 4 games of 2 or more picks, or 3 games of 3 picks. I mean, I'd rather personally take the one game where he throws 5, and then I have another 15 games where he's pretty consistent and does pretty well. Also with that, he also has two great receivers. He has Dez Bryant, who's developing into one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. And you have the old veteran Jason Witten, who's a very good tight end, who had an impressive coming off of spleen surgery where he didn't even know he would play Week 1, and he had almost 100 catches last year, which is impressive for a tight end. The biggest thing with Romo is if you can get past all your personal hatred or your concern over him choking in the playoffs or losing games or blowing up against teams, he will put up points, and he's a top 8 quarterback in any NFL draft or any fantasy football league. He's going to be the top 8. So that is Tony Romo. So I've given you my top 7. I'll just go over them real quick once again. The first one is Aaron Rodgers. Number 2 is Drew Brees. 3 is Tom Brady. 4 is Matt Ryan. 5 would be Cam Newton. 6 is Matt Stafford. Tony Romo. I didn't put in there that you guys are probably going to go, he's better than Tony Romo, or he's better than Cam Newton. I also forgot to say that I did keep RG3. I completely forgot about that, but I still wouldn't put RG3 in the top 10 quarterbacks. Maybe 9, maybe 10. He's still a sophomore, and that's kind of why I got these other two guys here that I know people are going to be a little upset that they aren't in the top 7, or they might have some concern and call me an idiot or something stupid like that because of my opinion on who's the quarterback, but that would be Colin Kaepernick and Russell Wilson. He's in the same boat as RG3, both those quarterbacks where they're going into their sophomore year. Did they have a good first year? Yes, they both did. They all three had tremendous years. Seattle was really good and started Russell Wilson all 16 games, but Russell Wilson only had 3,100 yards passing. That's not a lot of yards, and that doesn't really get you a lot of points in fantasy. He did have 26 touchdowns and only 12 or 14 picks. I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't exactly remember. But not good. He's good young, but they rely on the run game. They rely on Lynch rushing a ton of yards, and I personally can't put Russell Wilson in the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks when he hasn't proved it. He's not. I don't think he's worth a high pick. I think you can get him 9th, 10th round, and if he does it this year, then maybe we can start talking about him being okay and starting to improve. Someone is Colin Kaepernick. Now, some playing time, Smith got hurt, and he did take the reins in San Francisco, and he led him to the Super Bowl. But again, they like to run that read option, and I'm not a big believer in the read option. I'm not a big believer in the sustainability of that. Again, as I said before with Cam Newton, you're putting your quarterback at risk, and even though he is a big boy and he could probably take the licking a lot, it's not worth it. It's too much risk to have your quarterback go out on a read option and get killed by Lance Briggs or Clay Matthews or I'm blanking on the guy, J.J. Watts or something. That you're putting your quarterback at a lot of risk by having him out there in space. And these linebackers and defensive ends are pretty good and pretty quick, and they're going to catch up to him. And that's the biggest concern. Starting quarterback did a set pick and to get hurt because he wants to run the ball all over the place. And then that's the same thing. I'm taking the risk with RG3 as well, but that's an 8th round pick that I'm losing. So it's not, to me, that's about where he would get drafted and about what he's worth. And he's going to be hampered by his knee, and we'll kind of see what happens as far as that. Other than that, those 3 quarterbacks, they're good. They're in their sophomore year in the NFL, which is a concern, and you never know what their slump might be going into the sophomore year, and they're not going to catch any defenses. So fantasy football quarterback, best of quarterbacks left after the keeper selections. Hope you enjoyed that, and I can't wait to hear all the hating that I'm going to get for my top 7. Now that I've given you the top players that I have for each position, I just got a couple housekeeping items for the upcoming fantasy football year. Remember, the fee is $50. I'm not going to give my address over the internet here. I'll text you guys each my address. I'd like to have payment by the first week of the year. That way, so we can get everything squared away. We don't have any issues going into the later parts of the year. Second thing is just for the upcoming draft. Remember, August 24th, 10 p.m. at night. It's going to be an online draft. Everybody can do it from their homes. If you guys want to meet up, have a couple drinks, you're more than welcome. I'll probably be sitting at home having a couple drinks myself. Another item with the draft. Because ESPN doesn't have a system to where I can put the keepers for each league into a specific draft spot for each team, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release all the players back into the draft pool, and each round I'll tell you who's supposed to pick who, and I'll give you the guys the list beforehand to make sure you guys do not draft these 11 players because one guy didn't keep somebody. So that's how we're going to do it. It's the easiest and simplest way until ESPN develops something to where I could put in keeper round 6 for Kotzian because he kept CJ Spiller with the 6th round, for example. You know, I have to do it that way. It's just the easiest way than trying to pick number 400th best player and do all that. Just too much of a mess. So everybody's going to go back in to the draft pool, and we just got to remember we can't keep these. We can't draft any of these 11 players. So that's just a little bit tidying up. Once again, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, anything they want to bring to me, they can put it on the webpage. Send me a text, shoot me an email. Anything you need, just let me know, and then we can discuss it as a group, and we can make group decisions from there. Kotzian does have our trophy. I'll post a picture up right after this video of our trophy just so everybody can see it. I know most of you guys know what it is. We got a couple new guys in it, and a guy from last year we didn't see what the trophy looks like. So this is what we're playing for each year, the TDs and Beer Fantasy Football League. All right, let's get ready for the draft, and I'll talk to you guys later with another video.